Well, I think now is a good time to stretch our legs, take a walk around the governor's mansion, and helping us is Al Howenstein, who's a guide here at the mansion. Al, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Jeffrey. Welcome.
Well, we'll start in the room where we're doing most of our broadcast. Al, could you tell us what this room is and maybe describe it a bit?
Oh, certainly. It'd be my pleasure. The room that we're standing in is now the music room. Originally, when the home was built in 1877, it was a library. But when the Pardees moved into the home, when it became a governor's residence in 1903, Mrs. Pardee, who had to furnish the entire home, wanted to make it a music room. And so she acquired this beautiful grand piano, Steinway, that is still sounds terrific. The only thing that is original to the home in the room are the draperies. And these, we know, came with the home when the Gallatins had the home built. The furnishings that we have in the room, this beautiful purple furnishings, were bought by Minnie Johnson. And Minnie Johnson worked with the Bruner family in order to select the furnishings for this room because she was very proud. She wanted to have the beautiful purple of the chairs and the sofa to match the draperies.
And it's certainly a beautiful room. These are quite luxurious armchairs, very nice to sit in, quite an impressive place to bring people, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And this is one of the things that is part of the history of the mansion for the 13 governors who lived here, is that it was an impressive place and a place to entertain dignitaries from around the world.
Al, what is this room?
This room is the Informal Parlor. In Victorian days, we had the formal parlor, which was really kind of an adults-only area, and the informal. And it was the Browns who made this their family room. Bernice is the one who selected the furnishings for the room, acquired the 1957 Sylvania television set.
Yeah, it's still there. It's very
it's
authentic looking.
And it still works, Jeffrey.
Really?
Yes. And the other thing that Bernice did was she made arrangements with the Young Museum to acquire or to get on loan.
That's the San Francisco, the Young Museum?
The San Francisco de Young, to get on loan some artwork for the home. About 6 years ago, the Young wanted to have the original of Ariana Huntington returned. So the Questers group were the ones who then paid for and had a replica made so that we can get the room back the way it was when the Browns were here.
This is a very spacious room, and the furniture that's in here is very much around the walls. There's a lot of room in the middle. Is that, you think, how it would have been when it was an actual family home?
That's the kind of way that Bernice kind of had it arranged, but it also then allowed them to have, when they would have large dinner parties, that they would put tables in here as well as in the hallway in order to accommodate a lot of guests.
Now, when you look out the windows here, we're looking out onto, I think, 16th Street.
16th Street, correct.
Which is a very busy 3-lane road, and I guess back in 1903, traffic wasn't the problem, but when the Reagans moved in here, I guess it was starting to get quite busy outside.
Oh, it was extremely busy because that was the main highway to Reno. That was the old, I think that they call it Highway 40 in those days. And so that was one of the concerns that they had, was the amount of noise. And upstairs in the upper bedrooms, they did put up sound curtains that helped reduce it, but it still was extremely noisy and busy 24 hours a day. The kitchen, as we see it, is really what Virginia Knight called her Scandinavian kitchen.
Or what? Scandinavian.
Scandinavian kitchen. The interesting thing about this, you see with the refrigerator up against the wall, when she wanted to have a double-door refrigerator, but there wasn't room in here, that used to be a window. And when you're on the outside, you can see they took out the lower portion of the window, and they built a box on the outside of the house and slid the refrigerator back in there.
Well, that explains it, because when I first looked at it, it looked like the doors of the refrigerator were flush with the wall, which wouldn't quite make sense.
No, it doesn't. Not sense. And it was for Bernice, who was the one who purchased and had acquired, not purchased, but had acquired the wonderful self-cleaning ovens and stove that we have in here.
And I'm not quite sure how to describe the color of the paint in here. I guess you might say it's aqua or...
It's lettuce and mayonnaise.
Oh, really? Okay.
Lettuce and mayonnaise. That's what kind of gave it the Scandinavian, as well as when we have the beautiful copper hood is also Scandinavian.
The copper hood over the range is gigantic.
Yes.
And it looks like the oven and so on. All of that looks like it's period.
It's from the 50s.
Okay. Yeah. And behind us, there's a picture that I'm curious about. It's a black and white photograph. It looks like an old photograph, and it appears to be a Chinese man in traditional Chinese clothing. Who is this?
This is Jim Ming. Jim Ming was Albert Gallatin's cook.
That was the original family here.
The original family who had the home built, yes. Mr. Mr. Gallatin had 15 servants, but Jim was his pride and glory, I guess.
Right, we walked through a box basically from the kitchen into the breakfast room. Why is there a box there?
Well, the reason it's a box is because this addition was built onto the home in 1905 for Governor Pardee, who used it as an office, and then it has the bedroom upstairs that we'll visit a little bit later. And there was no access to the main part of the house other than upstairs to the bedroom.
Ah.
And when it was decided to make this into a breakfast room, it was Lila Young, Governor C.C. Young's wife, who said, this would make a wonderful family dining area for breakfast. And she's the one who then had the transition made from an office to a breakfast room. And then they had to get away to get into the kitchen. And so they built another box that accessed the doorway to the kitchen.
But a little bit of privacy from the kitchen because it's close by, but you can't quite see it. There's a
Right.
bit of transition. Now, there is a very formal table set up here in the breakfast room, and it's set up as if there's a very prominent visitor coming, and there's a photograph of a rather prominent visitor. On the table, it's President Kennedy sitting with what looks like the Brown family.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
What was the story behind this?
The story behind this is when JFK was going to run for president, he wanted Pat Brown's support.
So he was not president at this time.
No, he came to visit and asked Pat for his support, and he did it while they were having breakfast.
Oh my goodness! So that's what this photograph is showing.
Yeah.
And looking across the table, you get a beautiful view of, I guess, I'm not sure if it's round or oval swimming pool. What's the era of that?
The era of that is the 1959. That was built by friends of Pat Brown who wanted to have a swimming pool here. There was a picture that appeared in a newspaper of Pat Brown who liked to go across the street to the Mansion Inn at that time to swim because he enjoyed swimming and he also enjoyed being around people. I mean, after all, he was a consummate politician. And when they published the picture of Pat crossing the street in his thongs, his swimming suit, and a towel over his shoulder, they thought it was undignified. And so his friends got together and they had the pool built. And it was all done with private donations. And it was something that the Brown family thoroughly enjoyed for all the years they were here. This is a room that we affectionately called Jerry's room.
As in Jerry Brown.
As in Jerry Brown, our current governor. This was the room that Jerry would use when he visited with the family.
Oh my goodness! Jerry Brown is a student. Stayed in this room.
Yeah.
Do we know how much the room today looks like it did when he was here?
Probably not a great deal because then it transitioned. It became an office for the secretaries for first ladies, and so it made a bit of a transition from being a bedroom to being an office with serving multi-purposes as it does today.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see what kind of view you have from here, and it's kind of an odd view because this window that I'm right beside, the window is actually quite high up, so you can only sort of see, well, you can see the top of the Memorial Auditorium, which isn't bad, and then the other window on the other side of the room is even higher up. That's an odd situation, isn't it?
But it was part of when they added the addition onto the home. They were trying to make it look consistent with the rest of the mansion and its design from 1877. And so I can't talk about how the architecture decided to put the windows at that height, but I think it's the only way they could really make the accommodation that they wanted to do when they put the addition on.
What's your favorite part of the mansion?
Actually, I don't have a favorite part because
Very diplomatic.
Each room has a wonderful story of the governor's wife who did the decorations for the room, as we talked about, Bernice's contributions and the various other governor's wives, and what Mrs. Pardee did when she moved in, what Minnie Johnson did when she did her things. What I love about the mansion is the history of the 13 families of governors who lived here and the 2 predecessor families who lived here from 1877 to 1903.
And finally, Al, how did you come to be a docent here?
I became a docent here because I came up to Sacramento in 1983 to work for Governor George Duke Machen. And my wife, who has always been involved in the community, wanted to do something, so she took a class to become a docent. And they didn't have many male docents. And so whenever they needed a male, statue kind of thing, they would invite me to come down. And I fell in love with the place. And then in 2000, I took the docent class so that I could have my official credential because it is such a wonderful, rich home. I attribute back to Nancy Reagan the reason why we have the mansion here today as a historic site. You know, Nancy was the one who said that it wasn't, conducive for family living, but as she left, she said it is so rich in California history, it must be preserved for the people of California. And that's what we docents and the state parks are trying to do today.
Well, you must be concerned, though, about the prospect of it closing.
We're very, very concerned. Bob Warren is on our foundation, and the foundation is looking at ways of partnering with the state parks services in order to maintain the mansion and keep it functioning in some way during, this difficult financial times.
Al Hauenstein, thanks so much for joining us.
Jeffrey, my pleasure. Thank you for being here.